Have reported seeing something unexplained in the sky over the past 2 decades.
Commonly known as UFOs, the unknown objects have a new name and new attention from the government.
Tonight, WJZ investigator Mike Helgren takes you inside the mysteries in the sky.
This is a UFO, unidentified flying object.
America has long been fascinated by whether there's life outside of Earth.
Reports of flying saucers are nothing new.
And whether that life is trying to somehow contact us.
If you saw a UFO flying over Baltimore, what would you do? Would you be afraid?
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely. This year, Congress got serious about what used to be called UFOs, now called UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomena, objects seen in the skies that defy an easy explanation.
Almost invariably, the response is, well, the public couldn't handle the news. That's totally bonkers.
The government is investigating at least 650 potential sightings since 2004.
It's heartening to me that so many people are coming forward now. We're getting significantly more reports than was the case just 6 months or a year ago.
Peter Davenport has tracked hundreds of reports from Maryland on his website. He directs the National UFO Reporting Center.
1,923 reports from the state of Maryland. There are UFO reports coming from probably most cities in the country.
Many of the thousands of reports worldwide are centered on the U.S. East and West coasts, the Middle East, and the South China Sea. Experts disagree about whether the UAPs are extraterrestrial, but agree there should be no stigma about reporting them.
Right now, we need a system where pilots can report without fear of losing their jobs.
Which brings us to one of the latest unexplained sightings.
It went across the sky this way and only lasted for maybe 30 to 45 seconds.
Greg Facello of Port Deposit recently went outside to plug in his car and saw something very strange flying low over the skies of Cecil County.
Oh my Lord!
If it was a shooting star or a comet of some natural occurrence, I wouldn't even have bothered to send it to you. But this thing looked made by some intelligent life form.
Is the search for life elsewhere.
A few weeks ago, NASA called for better data and more study of these objects.
Do I believe there's life in a universe that is so vast that it's hard for me to comprehend how big it is? My personal answer is yes.
Some are concerned about the risks UAPs pose to military and commercial aircraft, and whether the mysterious sightings are part of surveillance by China or Russia.
These pilots, they see it as urgent for a national security reason to have domain awareness. They could crash into these objects.
It looked like several vehicles, and then it broke apart, then it streamed out, and it just faded in the sky.
Facello may never know what flew over him in Port Deposit.
It could be extraterrestrial life. I don't know. Again, it didn't look natural.
Like so many others, he questions what's really out there.
Whatever it was traveled across the sky.
Oh my Lord!
It was nothing like I've ever seen before.
The mysteries in the sky. Mike Helgren, WJZ.
A mystery indeed.
We could always imagine.
Oh. Now to our #1 trending story on CBSMiami.com.
It involves talk of alien sightings at Bayside Marketplace. On New Year's Day, there was a massive police response in downtown Miami. More than 50 young people armed with sticks began fighting. Police say juveniles were also setting off fireworks, causing chaos.
So now people are posting online saying that police weren't there to handle a group of rowdy teens, but rather 8 to 10 feet tall shadowy aliens. Conspiracy theories are saying a big creature could be seen standing in front of the entrance to the shopping area, Bayside. Today, the phrases Miami Mall and aliens of Miami have been among the top 10 searches on Twitter's trending tab. Twitter, of course, now called X. And Google News even has several reports questioning the event.
So we reached out to the Miami Police Department. They issued a statement saying in part, quote, there were no aliens, UFOs, or ETs. No airports were closed, no power outages. Facepalm emoji was included in the statement. And to read up on the story that has gone viral, just head to our website at cbsmiami.com.
Read all you want, but remember, no.
This version, because it's stabilized and there's a boomerang on it, so you guys can get a better look. but also because they're being seen, or at least reports of them are now coming out more. So this one is in Poland. It's actually from 2020. The person was a little embarrassed about the video, but they finally made it public after Jeremy Corbell made his public. We even have one from 2009, and this one is extremely interesting. It's in California. It's not just interesting because it has a weird and similar shape to that jellyfish UFO. We're actually seeing 3 orbs orbiting it, kind of like that plane video, and it accelerates so quickly up into the air when it leaves, because it doesn't just disappear, it leaves. Here's a slowed down version so you can see that acceleration. That is insane. Those are breakneck speeds. And it reminds me of these pod UFOs that some are saying may actually be the extraterrestrial or non-human intelligence coming down. Speaking of, in Brazil, hikers think they've spotted 2 10-foot aliens moving very quickly across the hilltop. What do you guys think about this? Right? These are 2 10-foot aliens supposedly rushing quickly across the hilltop after we had a alleged alien encounter in Miami with 8 to 10 feet alien, after we had a alleged alien land in Las Vegas, 8 to 10 feet. Speaking of Miami, more people are now reporting more sightings in Miami, and they're wondering, look at that, disappeared. They're wondering if it's related to the mall incident. This is also in Miami. Everyone thought at first that it was SpaceLink or SpaceX, including myself, except that you realize that they're not actually in a train. They're a little bit random and disordered, which is what threw the person off and why they started recording. I mean, this UFO phenomenon, I feel like we're definitely getting a catastrophic disclosure.
UFO whistleblower David Grush has doubled down on some bombshell claims, maybe the most explosive being that the U.S. government has killed people who tried to go public with stories about non-human spacecraft, telling News Nation's Elizabeth Vargas last night. Let's watch.
You recently did an interview with Joe Rogan on his podcast, and you said something that really took me aback. You said that you believed that the United States government has killed people for trying to go public with a story. Really?
Those are concerns that certain scientists on the program that are known to me, presented that to myself, but I did direct them to the appropriate authorities on that. That's something that I don't know firsthand. That's something they espouse, but because of the serious nature of that, I directed them to the appropriate authorities, such as the Inspector General staff and law enforcement. So I can't speak to that because that's something that they espoused, and I directed them to the right authorities.
Other people were worried about that, not you.
I had some unique things happen in my personal life that, were some of the causal factors for me to file a complaint, some things that my wife and I had noticed, some intimidation. I can't get into the exact nature. I did provide that information to the Inspector General, and hopefully they've referred it to appropriate federal law enforcement and counterintelligence personnel. But I can't discuss that publicly because of the sensitive nature of that for my own protection and for the integrity of the investigation.
Yeah, because if you really believe that the government has done that in the past with people who've tried to expose this UFO program, why are you still alive? You've done more to expose it than anyone else.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I went public, and certainly I was shown that, they can touch me at any time, and that's what led me to not only contact my former agencies, counterintelligence folks with, what I witnessed, and I provided evidence to that fact, but filed the complaint, and certainly going public was the appropriate move for me for my own protection.
And the more you dig into that and talk to people with actual knowledge of it, again, that's another story where there are some, fanciful ideas floating around that are just, there's no evidence that they're true. But if you talk to people who, have actual knowledge of it that they gathered themselves, there are parts of that story that I do not understand at all that are really, really, really dark. It's so dark that I, haven't told my wife about it. I mean, I haven't verified any of this, but this is not just stuff that I read on the internet. I know you all are very, very grounded in that story, so I think I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But there's some stuff there that's just like, man, I'm not even sure what that means. There's a spiritual component there that I don't fully understand. So yes, that story bothers me. And I think, last thing I'll say, that one of the reasons that we've had all these disclosures and all of these, 10 whistleblowers at this point, and it hasn't really become front page news. Part of it's suppression. Parts of the government don't want you to know about it, but part of it is the public can't deal with it. It's too far out.
But some are critical of this particular exchange, saying Morris and Carlson never provide evidence, sources, or a reason for withholding that information. All right. So let's maybe go with the Grush stuff.
Right. So Grush is saying that he knows people who felt threatened for trying to come forward with information, or even that people were killed for doing so. And Elizabeth Vargas said, okay, but that's not necessarily based on your experience. And then Grush said, well, obviously he hasn't been killed. He's alive. He's testifying. But he did fear. He had fears for his for safety or for some kind of harassment based on what he's doing.
But based on what he's experienced, he said, they've shown me they can touch me. They've shown me that they know how to touch me in my life.
Well, he might be referencing the fact that there was a lot of negative reporting about him, actually, that The Intercept did. We talked to Ken Klippenstein about it. It was Ken's reporting on his history of I think it was substance abuse, that kind of thing. So he might mean that they tried to delegitimize me. They tried to smear my reputation for speaking up, which is not.
Do you think that's the same? I mean,
that's
not at all to minimize the kind of coercive power of doing something like that. And certainly the government has demonstrated
it has tremendous coercive
power. And the government has shown its willingness to do that in a million different ways, sending threatening letters to Martin Luther King, wiretapping him, all that sort of thing. So I credit that. At the same time, that wasn't exactly the question, right? What Vargas was pushing him on is this idea that his life has been threatened and that other people's lives have been threatened to the point of actually killing them.
Who's doing the threatening and who's doing the killing?
And who is it that has been apparently killed by the government? That's a very serious charge. I mean, we up until this point have been talking about a hunt for potential alien spacecraft and alien bodies. Should this be a manhunt for human beings that have been killed because of knowing too much?
Lieutenant R.S. Maxwell took off in his B-EC fighter, but saw nothing unusual until 8:25 p.m. when, according to his report, my engine was missing irregularly, and it was only by keeping the speed of the machine down to 50 miles per hour that I was able to stay at 10,000 feet. I distinctly saw an artificial light to the north of me, and at about the same height. I followed this light northeast for nearly 20 minutes, but it seemed to go slightly higher and just as quickly as myself. And eventually I lost it completely in the clouds. Such sightings occurred frequently during the war. The reasons are fascinating in themselves. The first is that aviation is in its infancy, so light phenomena at altitude are a new experience. The second is fear. For the first time, a real threat came from the skies. It wasn't just the Western Front. On August 21, 1915, 20 New Zealand soldiers allegedly saw 8 breadloaf-shaped clouds over Hill, Suvla Bay. A British regiment, the 1st, 4th Norfolk, of several hundred men, was then noticed marching towards Hill 60. They marched into the cloud, which lifted off the ground, and were never seen again. It all began 1947 when the first UFO started. A pilot named Kenneth Arnold reported 9 saucer-like things flying geese in a diagonal chain-like line. The people fear of invasions, but the Air Force blocks it. Its lead UFO investigator from examining the incident. Then you question why are the higher-ups hiding it? Then it come down to this, that it's spiritual, and we are in spiritual warfare that been happening for a long time since 1947. The power to be are silencing those that are speaking out. Many of the people testimony are aligned with the sightings of UFO and UAP.
From military officers, they say UFOs are real and they are a threat to national security. Pilots and intelligence officers described to lawmakers not only what they've seen in our skies, but what they claim the government knows about unidentified aircrafts.
But this highly anticipated House oversight hearing happening just hours ago on Capitol Hill, it included some jaw-dropping testimony. One whistleblower claims the military has recovered UFOs, including, quote, non-human biologics. 10 Tampa Bay's Aaron Parseghian followed the entire thing for us. He's here now in studio with the concerns that lawmakers say they have with this, Aaron.
Yeah, this was not sci-fi. This was testimony from some credible people that came as Congress demands transparency from the Pentagon, because lawmakers on both sides of the aisle believe UFOs, or UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, as they are also called, are a growing threat to national security, and they feel they're being left in the dark.
Do you believe UAPs pose a potential threat to our national security?
Yes, and here's why.
3 former military officials blowing the whistle on their encounters with UFOs.
Testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth.
Questioned under oath as members of the House Oversight Committee seek more transparency.
The technology that we faced was far superior than anything that we had.
Retired Navy Commander David Fravor among the trio. In 2004, he witnessed what was captured on this now famous video of a large object flying off the coast of California. What he saw defied our understanding of physics, and he says jammed his F-18's radar.
The controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cat point roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute."
Former Navy pilot Ryan Graves also testifying encounters with UAPs were not rare, and described in 2014 his squadron coming across sphere-like aircrafts with cubes inside.
These objects were staying completely stationary in Category 4 hurricane winds. These same objects would then accelerate to supersonic speeds, 1.1, 1.2 Mach.
While the Pentagon has publicly said they've investigated hundreds of UAP reports, former military intelligence officer David Grush, who was on 2 task forces investigating UAPs, says the government operates a crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General.
Grush even saying biologics were recovered in the crashes.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
So this is a lot to take in. The question is, what's next? Well, these lawmakers say they are planning on getting answers in a confidential setting as well, adding possible legislation forcing transparency, and certainly more hearings are likely next. In studio, Aaron Parseghian, 10 Tampa Bay.
And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them.
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have 1/3 of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. Thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions, just let those run wild. until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey. Good day.
Infiltrating the minds of the young. Kids are being exposed by these rappers and the spells that are being put out throughout the whole music industry that are targeting children to normalize this unusual behavior. Plus, the likes of Sexy Red and This What You Get.
I have never experienced, and I'm 22. Having to teach and work with you guys as children has been the most traumatic experience of my life. I teach 5-year-olds ballet. 5-year-old girls ballet. I have a class of 10 students. They don't respect any authority. You ask them, can you stand in your designated spot? They're telling you no and shut up. They're throwing things at each other. They're throwing things at other people, other classmates. You say, can everybody sit in their spot? I don't want to, I'm not doing that. You don't get to tell me what to do. You're not my mom. You confront the parent. The parent tries to argue with you and fuss at you because you tried to reprimand and redirect their kid. I told a young little girl, please sit in your spot. You're not my mom, you don't tell me what to do. Okay. When her mom came to pick her up, I said, hey, your daughter's having a hard time following instructions, and 7 times today I've had to redirect her to just sit in her spot. Well, clearly she didn't want to sit, and mind you, this is a mom. Clearly she didn't want to fucking sit right there. So, I mean, if she's telling you she don't want to do something, why keep asking her to do it? You know she's not going to do it. What world do we live in? Like, what in you guys' brain as a parent says, my kid not following any directions is a great thing. It's not that serious, and y'all don't have a right to tell her what to do. It's sad. It's sad. It's really, really sad. And another thing that's heart-wrenching is horrifying. It is horrifying. Your 5-year-old daughters are asking to listen to Pound Town and Ski Yee. Your daughters, your 5-year-old daughters are asking, can we hear Pound Town? I'm playing them Princess Tiana ballet music. And they are asking me, can we hear Pound? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
Sexy Red responded to this, a teacher who seems genuinely concerned about these kids, and the Sexy Red responded and said, girl, play Pound Town Ski and shut the F up. Now, Sexy Red instantly regretted this because right after this, people started getting on her, and she later on deleted this tweet.
Music, particularly among adolescents, is a